It's 5 p.m. here in Lagos, Nigeria. A fresh edition of The World Today this year. I'm Layo Olarinde. Coming up on the program. Countries around the world bid goodbye to 2024, ushering in the new year 2025 with lots of festivities and celebrations. 2 people killed, 6 injured following Russia's drone strike on Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. Plus, about 25% of Puerto Rico remains in dark after a massive power outage. Hello once again and Happy New Year to you. Countries around the world bid goodbye to 2024, ushering in the new year 2025 with lots of festivities and celebrations, including dazzling fireworks display. New Year celebrations reach all the Americas after Australia, Asia, Europe and Africa all mark the start of 2025. The small Pacific island nation of Kiribati took the lead once again, taking center stage as the first country to usher in the new year. However, parts of Alaska, all of Hawaii and island nations in the South Pacific are the last to ring in the new year. Here are highlights of celebrations across the Middle East and in Europe.
Qatar welcomed the new year with a grand drone and fireworks display, drawing hundreds of people to the city of Lusail to capture the countdown. In Dubai, many welcomed the new year featuring nearly 9-minute long fireworks, lasers and colorful displays at the world's tallest skyscraper, Burj Khalifa. Still in the Middle East, Syrians gathered at a Christmas market in the capital, Damascus, to ring in the new year with fireworks. And in Europe, Britain's iconic Big Ben came alive at midnight, featuring multiple fireworks displays over the River Thames. Festivities continued in the UK despite severe weather warnings from the Met Office for the coming week, with heavy rain and strong winds due to affect parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England. And tens of thousands of people and tourists gathered under the Brandenburg Gate in Germany's capital, Berlin, to usher in the start of the year 2025. This reliever from Brazil has a new year wish.
A global world. That's what I want. We are very global citizens. We live in Brazil, we live in the United States, we have parents in Europe, in Belgium, and we want to have a global world. We don't want to have individual countries. We want to have a global world. That's our wish. And a lot of love.
In Greece, the ancient Parthenon temple on the Acropolis had a quiet new year with limited fireworks and a small drone display to ring in 2025. The mayor of Athens said this year's celebration took into account the distress that loud fireworks cause on pets and animals. Local media also reported that the initiative began with Mayor Harris Dawkins' decision to protect the city's animal population. In Russia, there was no fireworks this year on Moscow's biggest family holiday, but in almost every other way, the capital is as bustling as previous New Year celebrations. New Year's Day in Russia's main seasonal holiday, with Orthodox believers also celebrate Christmas Day on January 7. Amid the war with its neighbors Ukraine, Russians who came to the center of Moscow to celebrate say they are hoping the new year brings peace and prosperity for the country. Meanwhile, Russian President Mr. Vladimir Putin, in a New Year address to the nation, revealed that the country has overcome many obstacles because of its unity.
Уважаемые граждане России.
Dear citizens of Russia, dear friends, in Russia, This period has been filled with many events, including historically significant, large-scale ones. We have set great goals for ourselves and achieved them. Many times we overcame trials because we were together. This is how our unity, our faith in ourselves, and in our strength, in our capabilities, were strengthened.
And as Ukraine marked the start of 2025, the mood in the country is rather calm. Its landmark Maiden Square remained empty due to curfew that was introduced since Russia's full-scale invasion in February 2022. In a New Year video address, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he believed the United States would stand alongside Kyiv as it fights to stop Russia's invasion, adding that only a strong Ukraine could secure peace and earn worldwide respect.
Dear Ukrainians, may 2025 be our year, the year of Ukraine. We know that peace will not be given to us as a gift, but we will do everything to stop Russia and end the war. This is what each of us wishes for. Ukraine is not alone. We have our friends with us. Since the first minutes of this war, America has stood with Ukraine. I believe that America will also stand with Ukraine.
And Paris kicked off 2025 with thousands of people celebrating as fireworks lit up the sky above the Arc de Triomphe monument. Locals and tourists gathered to watch various musical performances, light shows, and a fireworks display.
Meanwhile, the Southeast Asian countries are among the latest to mark the beginning of 2025, with thousands gathering to witness spectacular firework displays. China, Malaysia, the Philippines, Japan, and even South Korea have welcomed the new year. The New Zealand and Australia were among the other countries in the Pacific region, were among the first to welcome 2025. Our foreign affairs correspondent Amarachi Ubani highlights some of the celebrations.
A number of countries around the world have already entered the new year, some of the latest being Hong Kong, with a dramatic fireworks display over Victoria Harbour as the clock struck midnight of Wednesday morning. Hundreds of fireworks lit up the sky as music played throughout the 12-minute spectacle. Taiwan also welcomed 2025 with spectacular fireworks display of skyscraper Taipei 101. The 6-minute fireworks and light show featuring the theme Team Taiwan Champion was inspired by the victory of its baseball team at an international championship in November, which demonstrates Taiwan's determination and strength to meet every challenge. Finally, New Zealanders were among the first in the world to celebrate the arrival of 2025 with a fireworks display in Auckland. The fireworks show started with a 10-second countdown projected on the base of Auckland's 328-meter-tall Sky Tower, followed by fireworks illuminating the night sky and accompanied by a laser light show. Sydney welcomed the 2025 New Year with the city's biggest ever fireworks display, featuring a golden waterfall effect falling from the iconic Sydney Harbour Bridge. The 12-minute spectacular stretched 7 kilometers along Sydney Harbour and featured 23,000 individual pyrotechnic shots and more than 13,000 aerial shells. And for the first time, fireworks were launched from 80 new positions on the western side of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Amarachi Ubani, Channels Television News.
We're looking at pictures of celebrations from the iconic New York City's Times Square. Thousands of revelers cheered in the new year, featuring the annual ceremony of a descending crystal-clad ball. Many had arrived early in the morning for a spot in one of the barricaded pens set up by the New York Police Department. The tradition dates back to 1907, when the first ball was dropped in Times Square on New Year's Eve atop One Times Square. The New Year event also witnessed various musical performances by Megan Thee Stallion and Rita Ora before the final countdown to midnight. And in South America, millions of revelers gathered in the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro to usher in 2025 in what has become one of the world's famous New Year's Eve celebrations. People were entertained throughout by various musical performances. Concerts were also held at other venues in Rio de Janeiro, with a total of 13 stages spread across the city. At the stroke of midnight, the skies over Rio lit up with spectacular fireworks display. Local officials had estimated that 2.5 million people would gather to watch the 12-minute fireworks show. The annual Réveillon, New Year's Eve celebrations, is one of the city's largest tourist attractions and an iconic symbol of the city. North Korea also ushered in the new year with celebrations including fireworks and an ice dancing display. According to state-run television KRT, leader Kim Jong-un and his daughter Joo-ae attended New Year's event alongside the president's sister Kim Yo-jong. Also present at the event was Russia's ambassador to North Korea, Alexander Matsugora. President Kim pledged to solidify the country's comprehensive strategic partnership with Russia in a letter to President Vladimir Putin.
경의하는 김정은 동지께서 5월 1일 경기장 돈은 높은 관람석에 나오시는.
However, the new year started with protests for many Serbian students who took out to rally against the government over the deaths of 15 people by a collapsing canopy at a train station. Students stood in silence for 15 minutes in the capital, Belgrade, to commemorate the victims of the November incident just as midnight struck. The concrete canopy of the recently renovated roof caved in on November 1st, killing 15 people and injuring 3 others. Students, opposition supporters, and the public have taken to the streets repeatedly after the accident, which they blamed on rampant government corruption and nepotism that resulted in what they called poor quality construction. However, the government denies these allegations. And while most countries are reeling in the New Year festivities with bright lights, many in Puerto Rico are still celebrating in darkness, waiting for power to be restored. It comes as a massive power outage hit nearly all of Puerto Rico early on New Year's Eve, leaving more than 1.2 million of the U.S. territory's 1.47 million clients without electricity. While the country's energy company said power had been restored to about 700,000 clients, roughly half of those affected, it warned it could take up to 48 hours to fully restore electricity across the island. The blackout prompted renewed calls to address the unincorporated U.S. territory's power issues, which have persisted since Hurricane Maria in 2017. More New Year stories, this time in Africa. Kenyans welcomed the new year with roasted goat meat and prayers. In Ruru, revelers gathered in a pub to celebrate New Year's Eve with roasted goat meat. It's a traditional dish known as nyama choma. This practice, deeply rooted in Kenyan culture, brings people together to share in the preparation and enjoyment of the meal. Meanwhile, in the capital, Nairobi, some residents attended a New Year's Eve service in a church, welcoming 2025 with songs and quiet reflection. Celebrations in Gaza has been low-key as many displaced residents have been sharing their wishes for the new year 2025. For many, they hope for peace and an end to the war in Gaza and also the release of the remaining hostages in Hamas custody. Others wish their homes could be rebuilt this year so they can return back to their families and loved ones. Several homes in Gaza have been destroyed after a series of destructions from airstrikes. According to Gaza-based health authorities, the death toll from the ongoing conflict has risen to over 45,000, with over 108,000 more injured. A UN Human Rights Office report is condemning Israeli attacks on hospitals in Gaza, saying they had devastated the Palestinian enclave's health system and raised serious concerns about Israel's compliance with international law. In the 23-page report documenting various attacks between October 12, 2023 and June 30, 2024, the UN Rights Office said the strikes had severe consequences on Palestinians' access to medical attention. However, the Israeli military has not responded to the details on the report. Well, let's bring in Musa at the public relations sector of the Palestinian Association for Human Rights Witness. He joins us now from Sada, Lebanon. Happy New Year to you. Thank you for your time on the program.
Happy New Year for you also. We wish this year will be peace for all countries around the world.
Indeed. Let me begin with how many people, including yourself, are celebrating the New Year in Lebanon. We know the country for months now has endured tensions with the Israeli Defense Forces.
Okay, as you know, the war has not finished yet. And despite the challenges and tensions Lebanon has faced in the recent months, many Lebanese are trying to find moments for joy and hope during the New Year celebrations. However, these celebrations are likely subdued given the political instability, economic hardships, and security concerns that have gripped the nation. For many, the New Year serves as a moment of reflection and resilience, with some participating in small gatherings and public events aimed at fostering unity and hope for a better future. Still, the shadow of the recent tensions remains a constant reminder of the difficulty that the country faces.
Well, let's talk about this report issued by the United Nations about the Israeli attacks on Gaza and hospitals. What do you make of this? It's a 23-page report, and it's raising serious concerns about Israel's compliance with international law.
We all know that the Israeli forces does not look at the law and the international law in its war against Gaza Strip. She is bombing UN buildings, honorable buildings, even shelters, the small camps, the small nets that refugees are living in. The UN report is deeply troubling as it highlights serious violations of international humanitarian law and the principles of medical neutrality. Attacking hospitals in Gaza Strip not only disrupts critical healthcare services but also endangers the lives of patients. We know that over 100,000 are now endangered, and they want the health care in Gaza Strip, despite those who are kidnapped and doctors who were kidnapped, and they were taken to places that no one know where they are taken, such as the director of Al-Shifa Hospital, director of Al-Mahmadani Hospital, director of the last hospital that is working in Gaza. All those are kidnapped, and no one knows what is happening with the medical group in the hospitals. When the Israeli defending forces are coming and attacking these hospitals, no one knows what is happening for them. Such actions violate the Geneva Conventions, which protect medical facilities in conflict zones. As you know, Gaza Strip is now a conflict zone. Many parts of Gaza Strip are under the fire, under the Israeli forces' fire. The report issued by the UN, this report underscores the urgent need for accountability and independent investigations to ensure compliance with the international law and to prevent such incidents in the future. It also calls for stronger global mechanisms to hold violators accountable, emphasizing the need to safeguard the humanitarian spaces in times of the war.
The situation right now, in Gaza is quite difficult, especially with the cold weather enveloping the strip. We're seeing infants facing a higher risk of hypothermia. as their bodies lose heat more rapidly than adults. We understand 6 babies across the strip unfortunately died freezing to death. What do you make of the humanitarian situation?
As we know, the humanitarian situation in Gaza Strip is dire and worsening, particularly with the onset of winter. Winter is coming, and now we are in winter, and many winds and many raining in the beach, and the Gaza Strip is on the beach of Palestine, and this place is very windy in this weather. The combination of inadequate shelter, the lack of heating, and limited access to the medical supplies has placed vulnerable groups, especially infants and children, at extreme sick. They are now sick. They are living in a situation that is not humanitarian. We know that the global and the international law, the human rights law ensures the medical and the right to have a good shelter, the right to have a medical insurance and all this. Now the target deaths are 6 babies from hypothermia, highlights the severe gaps in humanitarian aid and the urgent need for immediate international interventions. Gaza's healthcare system already strained by years of blockage and conflict. We know that since 2007, Gaza is under blockage. This is unable to cope with the growing needs. The international community must act swiftly to provide emergent assistance, including fuel for heating, medical supplies, and adequate shelter, while also addressing the root causes for this crisis, which is the Israeli forces' war and fire against Gaza. We should solve this problem in order to ensure a long-term stability and protection for Gaza's population.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ali Musa. But just before I let you go, I mean, it's a new year. What do you emphasize this year, 2025, talking about your expectations regarding, the end of the war? Are we looking at a peace deal perhaps this year to bring this conflict to an end?
We wish that this year bring with it the end of the war in Gaza Strip and in the totally end of the war in South Lebanon, in order to let people take their rights, their important right to live, their right to live safely in peace, under warm places, in normal conditions, in humanitarian conditions. We wish that this year bring the peace for Gaza and for Lebanon and for all the world. We want war to stop in all countries, in all the world, and we don't know if international, all big countries will ask to have this, or its business will stand against that issue. So we pray that, and we wish that the war stop in all places.
All right then, thank you so much. Ali Musa is with the public relations sector at the Palestinian Association for Human Rights. Thank you for your time on The World Today.
You are welcome.
We're moving on to another war in Europe. 2 people have been killed and 6 others injured in a New Year attack on the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. According to officials, Russia's early morning drone attack also damaged buildings in 2 districts. Kyiv's mayor Vitaly Klitschko notes 2 floors of a residential building were partially destroyed in the strike. Russia has carried out regular airstrikes on Ukrainian towns and cities far behind the front line of its nearly 3-year-old invasion. Meanwhile, Ukraine says it has halted the transit of Russian gas to Europe through its territory after a 5-year transit deal expired. The closure of one of Russia's oldest gas routes to the European Union was expected and comes as Moscow's war in Ukraine soon enters its 3rd year. Ukraine's energy ministry said it ended the deal in the interests of national security, adding that its gas transportation infrastructure had been prepared in advance of the expiration. Since the war began in February 2022, the European Union has sought to diversify its energy supplies and reduce its dependence on Russia. Meanwhile, Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico has said the stoppage of gas transit through Ukraine will have drastic impact on European Union countries, but not Russia. The pro-Russian Slovak leader has repeatedly warned that the end of transit would cost Slovakia hundreds of millions of euros in lost transit revenue and higher fees for the import of other gas. And he's arguing it will also lead to a rise in gas and electricity prices in Europe. The shutdown of Russia's oldest gas route to Europe ends a decade of fraught relations sparked by Russia's seizure of Crimea in 2014. Ukraine stopped buying Russian gas the following year. To Asia now. South Korea's acting president Choi Sang-mok says authorities have completed the identification of all 179 victims of the country's worst air crash. Speaking at an intra-agency meeting in the capital, Seoul, Mr. Choi said funeral procedures for the victims have started and a joint investigation is underway. South Korea's transport ministry said 2 more U.S. officials will join the team of around 24 investigators, including those from the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, Federal Aviation Administration, and aircraft maker Boeing. Still on the New Year celebrations, we shift our focus to Lagos, Nigeria, where churches from various denominations converge for a night of reflection, prayer and celebration. As the clock approached midnight, worshippers united in voice and joyful celebration exchanged the New Year greetings.
To usher in the new year, Christians from the Anglican, Pentecostal, Celestial Church of Christ and other denominations gather in their respective churches in Lagos for a night of reflection, prayer, praises and thanksgiving. The Cathedral Church of Christ, Marina, hosts its traditional service as the Provost, Very Reverend Adebola Ojofei-Timi, reflects on the spiritual and personal growth achieved last year, encouraging the congregation to keep faith by acknowledging God in all aspects of life.
This is the only appropriate way to part with a tempestuous year as this outgoing one. Isaiah in chapter 12, verse 6 of the support urges us to do so, that is to praise God with loud noise and joyful song. He says, shout aloud and sing for joy, people of Zion, for great is the Holy One of Israel among you.
It's a jubilant atmosphere at the Citadel Global Community Church with congregants dancing and singing. The founder, Pastor Tunde Bakare, delivers a message of hope and redemption for 2025, declaring it the year of fulfilled dreams.
This is our year of fulfillment. No matter what happens in 2025, including all that happened in the past, the bad, the good, and the ugly, they are now equipped to know that all things work together for the good of the Lord and for those who are called according to his purpose.
Holding candles symbolizing the light of God, the congregation of the Celestial Church of Christ, Christ Castle Cathedral, entered the church led by the choir. The cathedral's shepherd, Venerable Superior Evangelist Joseph Adesoya, emphasizes the significance of the crossover service in the Christian fold.
It's like a norm for all people that even not for all people, every believer, in anything they believe, when it comes to the end of the day like this, and you want to go to the end of the life, you want to appreciate that God that has helped you.
And at the stroke of midnight, excited worshippers welcome 2025.
Happy New Year 2025.
Meanwhile, states in the southern region of Nigeria welcomed 2025 with a mix of gratitude, hope and optimism, celebrating the end of one chapter and the promise of a better one ahead. Let's take a look at the sights and sounds of the crossover celebrations from some of these states.
States in the southern region light up with prayers and celebrations to mark the end of 2024 and the start of 2025. In the South, the River State's Governor Simine Alai Fubara marks New Year's Eve and crossover celebrations in his hometown, Okpobo, leading the congregation in songs of praise for overcoming what he describes as the political trials of the past year. The atmosphere at St. Philip's Anglican Church in Asaba, the Delta State capital, is filled with joy and reverence as the congregation offers praise and thanksgiving to God, trusting Him for a brighter future.
Knowing what we are passing through from this 2024, it has not been easy, but our expectation is for the best. All depend on God to see us through.
2024 has been a beautiful year, a wonderful one, with its ups and downs, and hopefully and prayerfully we pray that 2025 will be better. 2025 will usher in better year, better economy for each and every one of us, for the church, especially for our country, Nigeria.
In his New Year broadcast at the government house in Yanagwa, Bayelsa State's Governor Doye Diri reaffirms his administration's commitments to foster development and prosperity.
As we begin the new year, I am filled with a sense of hope and optimism, eager to build on the progress we have made and to work assiduously towards a better, brighter, and greater future for our great states.
While the Akwa Ibom State's Governor, Pastor Umo Eno, preaches unity among residents in spite of their political leanings.
As we usher in the new year, I enjoin us to remain united and shun politics of division and personal destruction. We are committed to running an inclusive government, and we have demonstrated this approach in the last 18 months since we came in. Politics should not divide us or sever our bonds of kindredship.
Welcome to 2025!
In the southeast, Governor of Abia State, Alex Oti, also crossed into the new year from his country home chapel in Isialangwa South Local Government Area with assurances to residents of better living standards in 2025.
We have a mission, and that mission is to help our people move majority of us out of poverty, create the enabling environment for our businesses to do well. empower you to have an enduring business.
To Anambra State, where Governor Chukwuma Soludo reveals that the dawn of 2025 brings refreshed hope and unprecedented opportunities, especially with the signing into law of the 2025 appropriation bill of 606.99 billion naira.
We believe and pray that 2025 in Anambra here, we captured our budget as changing gears 2.0. That 2025 we're beginning the implementation of our 2025 budget with effect from today, because we have already signed that into law last week, more than a week ago.
While Governor Hope Uzodimma of Imo State reassures residents that the pace of governance will continue to accelerate and service delivery will be enhanced in 2025, as he urges all residents to work with the government towards the development of the state. In Enugu State, Governor Peter Mba appealed to Nigerians to kindle the fire of love, empathy and charity in order to move the nation forward in the new year, and reiterates his commitments to inclusive development and economic opportunities. In the southwest, Governor Dakwa Abiodun joins residents to usher in the new year with praise and worship at the Cathedral of St. Peter's Ake in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital.
Committed to achieving even more in the year 2025. As we enter this new year, let us do so with our hearts brimming with gratitude and optimism. Gratitude for the resilience that has carried us through the past year, and optimism for the better days that lay ahead.
Worshippers at the Mary Queen of Angels Catholic Church in Akure, the Ondo State capital, appreciate God for seeing the new year. Across the southern region, the new year arrives with a promise of renewal, unity and progress. From pulpit to political class, the message is clear. 2025 is a year for rebuilding and reaffirming collective faith in a better Nigeria.
And as Nigerians usher in the new year with prayers and thanksgiving, the president is looking forward to a brighter 2025 for the nation. In a new year message, President Bola Tinubu says that as 2025 dawns, it brings many hopes and aspirations and prospects for better days. By the grace of God, he says it will be a year of great promise to fulfill collective desires. Though 2024 posed numerous challenges for citizens and households, he expresses confidence that the new year will bring brighter days as economic indicators point to a positive and encouraging outlook for the nation. Let's take you now to the U.S. to get a feel of what many people and how they are celebrating the new year. We told you earlier in the program about New Yorkers and residents and tourists at the iconic Times Square waiting for the new year. Well, joining us now for more on this is our correspondent in Washington, Maria Bird. Hello, Maria. Happy New Year to you. Well, it seems Maria is still basking in the New Year celebrations. Maria, if you can hear me, how are you celebrating and how are people in Washington and, other states celebrating this New Year? It seems we're having some audio issues with Maria. Maria, go enjoy your new year. We'll move on to our story that we told you about speaking of foreign military presence, Cote d'Ivoire announcing that French troops will withdraw from the West African nation, further reducing the military influence of the former colonial power in the region. In an end-of-year address, President Alassane Ouattara said the move is a reflection of the modernization of the country's armed forces. Cote d'Ivoire is home to the biggest remaining contingent of French troops in West Africa. There are some 600 French military personnel in the country, with 350 in Senegal. President Ouattara adds that the withdrawal will be in a concerted manner, and the military infantry battalion of Puerto, that is run by the French army, would be handed over to Ivorian troops. France, whose colonial rule in West Africa ended in the 1960s, has already pulled its soldiers out of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, following military coups in those countries and growing anti-French sentiment. Also, Senegal's President Bassirou Diomaye Faye 2025, would see an end to all foreign military presence in the West African country. In his speech to mark the new year, the president said he has instructed the Minister for the Armed Forces to propose a new doctrine for cooperation in defense and security, involving, among other consequences, the end of all foreign military presence in Senegal from 2025. Mr. Faye's statement comes a month after he announced that former colonial master France would have to close its military bases in Senegal. Now, this is the first time he has set a date for the closure of foreign military bases. I understand we have our Washington, D.C. correspondent Maria Bird back with us. Hello, Maria. I was asking how your New Year celebration is going and for others in the state.
Well, New Year's for us here in the United States, 2025 is a year of great expectation. I think people have had a really tough 2024. I heard you earlier speaking of some of the global challenges that have existed and people are hoping for in 2025. I think the United States in the same space, hoping for economic growth, hoping for things around just family and being able to really come out of even what we're still experiencing from COVID.
All right, then, Maria, I wish you a wonderful New Year 2025. We have to close the program. There's not much time, but I'm sure we'll be having you subsequently on The World Today. Thank you and have a great 2025.
Happy New Year.
Just before we go, Pope Francis led a mass to mark the World Day of Peace. He prayed for the wounded life at St. Peter's Basilica at the Vatican City. In his words, we are called to cherish life, to care for wounded life, and there is so much wounded life. We're called to restore dignity to the life of every human being born of woman. This is the fundamental basis for building a civilization of peace. At the ceremony, children wearing wise king's costumes also brought gifts to the Pope.
La pace sia con voi.
And that's it on The World Today. Thank you so much for watching the program. I'm Layo Olarinde. Have a lovely 2025.